Okay, so picture this. You're like this brilliant doctor, right? And you're also a total scholar. But you have to like flee across the desert because some power-hungry sultan wants your brains. Literally.
Oh, wow.
That was Avicenna's life.
Wow, that's,
Pretty intense, huh?
yeah.
Today we're going to dive deep into Avicenna and Averroes.
Okay.
Two absolute giants from the Islamic Golden Age.
Right.
And they shaped, I mean, everything. Medicine, philosophy, how we even think about faith and reason like centuries later.
Yeah, it's incredible how these two figures, even though they live a century apart, I mean, Avicenna was in Central Asia,
Yeah.
and Averroes was over in Islamic Spain.
Right.
But they both faced so many similar challenges. They attracted, like, passionate supporters,
Oh, yeah.
but also, some pretty fierce critics.
Really?
And we've got three sources to guide us today.
Okay.
We've got a biography, one that's, super celebratory, like a total fan club kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And then one that's a little more critical, takes a harder look.
Oh, this is going to be good. Okay, so the celebratory one talks about how Avicenna's medical textbook, the Canon of Medicine, was used for like 700 years.
Yeah.
Was it like the ultimate doctor's cheat sheet or something?
I mean, more than just a cheat sheet, it was a revolution. Think about it. This is back when a lot of people thought diseases were caused by evil spirits and stuff.
Right.
And Avicenna, he was like, nope, we got to observe, we got to document everything systematically. His canon didn't just describe diseases.
Huh.
It told you how to diagnose and treat them based on, real evidence.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay. He was one of the first to be able to differentiate between mediastinitis.
Yeastinitis.
Yeah, which is inflammation, like in your chest cavity.
Oh, okay.
Versus pleurisy, which affects the lining of your lungs. And that was huge back then for doctors to figure out, okay, how do we treat this?
That's amazing. He was basically like a detective for the human body.
Right.
And I read that he was also like a pioneer in early pharmaceutical research too, right? Like testing out different medications and stuff.
Totally. He believed in actually testing to see if the drugs worked, which seems obvious now.
Yeah.
But then, revolutionary. He even described ways to prepare and administer medicines. It's the groundwork for, how we do pharmacology today.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. But hold on, our critical source mentions that relying so heavily on the canon might have actually slowed down medical progress.
Oh, interesting.
Didn't anyone want to challenge him?
Well, it is a paradox.
Yeah.
His work was so complete, so influential,
Yeah.
that some doctors, maybe they got a little too comfy, just, quoting Avicenna instead of doing their own research.
Right.
So it's in a way, his brilliance maybe accidentally led to, a standstill in the field.
Wow, that's kind of a cautionary tale, right?
Yeah.
The dangers of just blindly following, anyone, even if they're brilliant.
Totally.
Like Avicenna.
Yeah.
So what about Averroes? What made him stand out?
Well, Averroes, they called him the commentator.
The commentator.
He was totally obsessed with Aristotle,
Oh, where?
this ancient Greek philosopher.
Yeah.
Basically, he wrote these crazy detailed commentaries, imagine a medieval study guide
Oh, okay.
to explain all of Aristotle's ideas to a wider audience.
Okay, but why Aristotle?
Right.
What was so special about this guy that he dedicated his life to, explaining his work?
Well, Aristotle was a total polymath, logic, ethics, physics, biology. He did it all.
Oh, wow.
Averroes, he saw in Aristotle this system of thought that you could actually reconcile with, Islamic theology.
So he was trying to bridge the gap between religious belief and philosophical inquiry.
Yeah, it was a radical idea back then.
I bet.
Because remember, this was a time when people were really debating how faith and reason fit together.
So, I mean, that sounds pretty ambitious, especially given the political stuff happening back then.
It was. And he even came up with this thing called the double truth doctrine.
Double truth.
It was super controversial. He basically said that something could be true in philosophy, but the opposite could be true in religion. And they're both still valid.
Oh.
It was his way of, reconciling these apparent contradictions between, what your faith tells you and what your reason tells you.
Okay, that's mind-blowing. He was walking a tightrope, trying to push intellectual boundaries, but also trying not to, upset the religious authorities.
And yeah, it cost him. He ended up exiled. And they even burned his books.
Wow. Now that's dedication to your ideas.
Right.
But our critical source, they bring up some potential downsides too. Something about him defending outdated theories.
Yeah. the source kind of suggests that, in Averroes' enthusiasm to defend Aristotle, he maybe overlooked some flaws in Aristotle's thinking.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Aristotle, he believed that the earth was the center of the universe.
Right.
And while we know that's not true.
Right. So even a brilliant mind like Averroes could be limited by, the science of his time.
Exactly.
It makes you think, about the biases of even our most trusted experts today.
It does. Makes you wonder, are we doing the same thing?
Okay. So we've got Avicenna, this groundbreaking doctor, super meticulous researcher,
Yeah.
and Averroes, this Aristotle enthusiast trying to bridge that gap between faith and reason. But they both, faced challenges, made mistakes. It makes them seem more human, I guess.
I think so.
So where do we go from here?
Well, yeah, it's like their limitations actually make their achievements even more impressive.
Right.
Like, imagine trying to revolutionize medicine
Yeah.
when everybody thinks that, diseases are caused by evil spirits.
Oh, right. It's
So-
like trying to explain the internet to someone who's never even seen a computer.
Exactly.
Okay, so what specifically about Avicenna's approach to medicine was so groundbreaking? Our celebratory source, they keep talking about how he emphasized observation. Like, what did that actually look like?
Well, look at his work on contagious diseases.
Okay.
I mean, way before germ theory, Avicenna, he noticed that some illnesses seem to spread through contact, with sick people.
Oh, okay.
He even suggested, like, quarantining people with tuberculosis to stop it from spreading.
He was way ahead of his time. Like, you know how today everyone's talking about evidence-based medicine?
Yeah.
It sounds like he was, like, setting the stage for that centuries ago.
Absolutely. He wasn't just describing symptoms. He wanted to figure out, like, why people got sick, Like his canon, it has these detailed descriptions of meningitis.
Oh, wow.
And he could even tell the difference between, like, different types of chest infections,
Okay.
which, that would have been super hard back then.
So he was like a brilliant doctor, but also a bit of a medical detective.
Right.
But I'm still kind of stuck on this idea that his work maybe became too influential.
Yeah.
Almost like it, I don't know, prevented more research.
Right.
How do we, reconcile that with all the amazing stuff he did?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, on one hand, the canon, it was a solid foundation for medical knowledge, right?
Right.
It brought, like, this level of standardization and rigor that was, desperately needed. But on the other hand, maybe some doctors got too attached to his authority.
Yeah.
They'd rather quote Avicenna than, actually run new experiments.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, even the best intentions, right,
Yeah.
can sometimes have, these unintended consequences.
Right.
Maybe he didn't mean to create a system where people just blindly followed him.
Right.
But that kind of happened.
It kind of did, didn't it? And it shows you how important it is to keep questioning and refining even our favorite ideas,
Right, even the stuff we think we know for sure. Okay, let's talk about Averroes for a sec.
Okay.
We said he was, obsessed with Aristotle.
Yeah, he was.
But what was it about Aristotle's philosophy that he just, loved so much?
Well, Averroes, he saw in Aristotle this framework for understanding the world, through logic and reason.
Yeah.
And remember, Aristotle, he was all about observation, deduction.
Right.
And Averroes thought that, can be applied to both the natural world and to, religious texts.
So he wasn't trying to, undermine religion. He was trying to find a way for reason and faith to, get along.
Exactly. And his commentaries, they weren't just summaries of what Aristotle said.
Yeah.
He brought in his own perspective, offering interpretations and even sometimes challenging Aristotle.
So not just a fanboy.
Right.
He had his own thoughts, too.
Oh, yeah. Totally an independent thinker.
Yeah.
And, that double truth doctrine of his, it was controversial, but it was also this brave attempt to deal with the whole relationship between, believing in something and using your brain to figure things out.
Yeah.
He was basically saying you can reach different truths, depending on whether you're using faith or reason. But they're both still valid.
That's pretty nuanced, especially for back then.
It is.
But our critical source, they did mention that Averroes' devotion to Aristotle, maybe it led him to defend some stuff that we know now is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
What was their example?
Well, they pointed out that, Aristotle, Averroes believed that, the earth was the center of everything.
Right.
And, of course, we know that's not how it works.
Yeah, thanks to Copernicus and Galileo.
Exactly.
So even though Averroes was brilliant,
Yeah.
he was still limited by what people knew back then.
Definitely.
Makes you wonder, like, if he was alive today, would he, like, totally embrace modern science?
Yeah.
Or would he, like, stick to his guns and keep defending Aristotle?
That's a good one.
I don't know.
It's tough to say, but it's fun to think about. Maybe, his commitment to reason would have made him accept these new discoveries, even if it meant, admitting he was wrong before.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot. We talked about Avicenna.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking doctor.
Meticulous.
So meticulous with his research, and how, his influence, maybe it kind of accidentally stopped more research from happening. And then there's Averroes.
Right.
Big Aristotle fan, trying to, like, bring faith and reason together.
Right.
Even with his controversial double truth doctrine.
Yeah, that was a big one.
But even he wasn't perfect, right?
Well,
Defending those old theories because of the limited knowledge of his time. What I'm getting from all this is that even the smartest people, they're shaped by, when and where they live.
definitely.
And it's important to recognize both their good stuff and, the stuff they didn't quite get right.
I agree. That's a great way to put it. It's like their stories show us that learning is a journey. It's not like you arrive somewhere and you're done.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even the greatest thinkers make mistakes.
Which honestly makes me feel a little better about all the times I've messed up trying to, understand the world.
Oh, me too. Me too. We're all human.
It's crazy how much their ideas still resonate today, you
Right.
know? Like, even though they lived so long ago,
Yeah.
we're still grappling with the same big questions about faith and reason.
Right.
Like tradition versus, trying new things.
Mm.
So they, I don't know, tapped into something about, like, just being human that's always relevant.
Yeah, they really did. Like Avicenna's idea of observation and experimentation, that's the basis for all of modern science.
It makes me think about, all the medical breakthroughs we've had lately. Would any of it have even been possible without, Avicenna insisting on this, like, systematic approach based on evidence?
That's a great point.
He didn't have, like, fancy labs and all the high-tech stuff we have.
Right.
But his basic principles, they're still totally relevant.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. And what about Averroes and his whole thing about reconciling faith and reason?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what we're still doing today?
Yeah.
With all these debates about, teaching science in schools, religious freedom.
Totally. It's like his double truth idea is still making people think about how different belief systems can actually exist together.
Right.
I mean, some people might think it's kind of a cop-out.
Yeah.
But I think it's awesome that he was willing to, actually try to deal with these complex issues.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to, like, push boundaries.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't afraid to make people think.
Challenge how everyone thought about things.
Exactly.
But we have to admit, they weren't perfect.
I call that.
I mean, like, Averroes defending that outdated theory about the Earth being the center of the universe.
Right.
It makes you wonder, how their work would have changed if they had access to all the stuff we know now.
It really does.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about studying history. You see how ideas change over time. You build on what people figured out before, but you also see, where they might have missed something.
Makes you realize we're all just products of our time.
They are.
Even our most deeply held beliefs, they could be proven wrong someday.
Right. Makes you want to stay humble.
It does. Makes me want to question everything. Even myself.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
To stay curious, stay open-minded, be ready to change your mind when new evidence comes up. That's the heart of what it means to, like, really explore ideas. That's what Avicenna and Averroes were all about.
So what can we take away from these two, like, giants of the Islamic Golden Age?
Well,
They were brilliant, they made mistakes, they were human.
just like us, their stories remind us that knowledge is a journey, They
Yeah.
encourage us to, like, use our reason, question what we think we know, and try to bridge the gaps between different cultures and ideas.
Their legacy is, like, this testament to how humans always want to understand things.
Yeah.
And that search, it's still going on today. And for you listening, here's something to think about.
Okay.
What will your contribution be to this conversation?
Oh,
What questions will you ask?
good one.
What boundaries will you push?
I love it.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into this amazing world of ideas.